computer algorithms in mode, and I set up my own amateur astronomy kit on my roof, and I started taking images, and this will take a long time. Like, so this is also something I call the geek's golf. You just set up your instruments, sometimes a cloud comes, you just wait, nothing to do, and it takes hours. This time just flies by. I spent a few months, and okay, next please. Okay, so this is what I got. The photograph on the right is an expanded view of what is on the left. This is all taken from a simple DSLR camera on my rooftop with a little bit of sophisticated instrument, not a lot, very simple. And I was able to see this nebula, and all the colors that you see, these are primordial colors. These are not the green and the yellow that we see here. These are the simplest of the electronic transitions, creating a red, blue, or a green in the sky. And with your naked eye, although you cannot see that because eye in the darkness cannot resolve colors, you just see it as a white patch. Anyway, it's very bright. In the center, there are stars being birthed. In the center, there are stars being birthed. A very beautiful view. So I found myself a nice hobby during COVID times. But then slowly things started getting better. Things started opening up just a little bit. Only for some important meetings you could go and do it in person. And it turned out there was some important meeting for which I was asked to give a lecture on fluid mechanics to a bunch of important people. And they said, why don't you come and give this lecture in person, not in Zoom. I was very much relieved at that thought itself, so I went. In that group, and I'll tell you who the group is in a second. In that group, there was one gentleman, and he, after lunch, we had the lecture and we had lunch, and then he said, I want to learn this amateur astronomy. Do you know anybody at IISc who does that? And so I do that. I've been doing it for some time. And he was very happy once he heard that. He said, I've been looking for someone for a very, very long time. I'm glad I found you. I'm going to bug you a little bit about all these things. I did not know how much he will bug me, because I got a call the next day saying, when can we set this up? I said, wow, that was fast. Relax, we'll do it in some time. And then I kept getting calls every 2 or 3 days, like, when can we set up, when can we set up? So I said, okay, finally I gave in, and I said, okay, let's do this. So the two of us, and I'm just going to let you know who that person was. We spent a lot of nights, again this is during the COVID times, it has not ended yet, of staring into the skies, taking photos, and I learned astrophotography with him also. And here is a photo of the famous man who's on the left. I hope you can recognize this person on the right. We spent a lot of time taking these photos, and what we did is after a whole year, we put together a calendar of some of our photos that we had taken together, including a lot of them by IISc students, so we put together a calendar. By the way, I have bought although the year is almost done, I have a few calendars to give away if you want so. I hope you recognize the person on the right. If you don't, there is a better photo of him. This is Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla. He is, hopefully, fingers crossed, things go right, will be the second Indian in space soon. He is off in the US right now, training with Axiom, learning how to be an astronaut on the International Space Station. So that was quite an interesting part. I'll share a lived experience and sort of pat myself. That worked, thanks. Okay, let's move on to a slightly more heady topic now. We discussed a lot of things during our time together, and one of the things he consistently asked me is, what was India's role in space science? So tell me, and I had to read up about it. So I ended up going all the way back in history, trying to figure out what India had done and why it had done so. Now it turns out that the sky was our first clock. It's there. Your moon has a very precise timing of the phases. The sun, obviously the motion is quite precise. And that's how we found the first clock for the month and the first clock for the year. In between you had the motion of the stars which were also moving in very precise ways. And if you were good at calculating and you were good at math, you could figure out what time of the year it is. As empires grew in India, the need for being able to calculate the calendar became very, very important. It became important globally, but India had taken a fantastic lead at that time. We had amazing mathematicians. I hope you have read about some of them. And during the Gupta period, we didn't have one or two good mathematicians, we had many. In fact, in the history books, you only appear to read of some of the greatest. He is obviously one of the greatest. I hope you recognize this sculpture. This is Aryabhatta. This photograph is taken from Ayuka, Pune, where this is the only statue of him I have seen ever in Indian campuses. There might be more, but I have not seen them. Aryabhatta was not alone. There were many who were involved in the problem of calendar making. Now, one quick word about why calendars were so important. The calendars were important because as empires grew, it was very important to have the right taxation at the right time. It was important economically. It was also important religiously, because if the king wanted to celebrate Diwali, the king should know when Diwali is going to be there. And all these festivals are associated with some event in the sky, something about the moon or something about the sun. So you have to be able to know beforehand when is Diwali coming. Now imagine you are an emperor and you said, oh, tomorrow is Diwali, we now celebrate, and everybody comes to the capital and it turns out it's not the right day. What a fool would you look. And this was actually an important problem worldwide. In fact, it was such an important problem that we had Buddhist monks from India who traveled to China and became established astronomers there. Because you needed people grounded in mathematics to be able to calculate these calendrical events. And calendar keeping was difficult. There were two problems with calendars. One is precise measurement of the stars. See, the sun and the moon are still easier problems to some extent. But calculation of the travel of the stars, which gives you all the days in between, that's more complicated. It requires precise calculation. There is another problem. The earth, you see, spins like a ball, like a top. But it doesn't spin very nicely. It actually wobbles a little bit on its axis. This wobbling is called precession of the earth. So what happens is, because of this wobbling, the stars change their positions every now and then a little bit. And this change of the star's position is very small. So from 1 year to another year, you will not be able to know it. But over a period of 50 years, you will be able to know it, and the days would be actually off. So if today was Diwali, your calculation might show it will be 2 days later, and that would be a fiasco. So that problem became prominent. Because of this reason, you had many scholars, the top-notch scholars of that time, working on this problem of calendars. We had Aryabhatta. By the way, his original writings are not available to us. The only way we know what he wrote is because others commented on it. His original work was lost. And if you look at the way they have commented, they are not all in praise of him, just as it would be in science. Do you think when Einstein made his first prediction, everybody came together and said, oh yeah, what a fantastic theory? It didn't happen that way. People disagreed. And that's how science works. And that's exactly how science worked even in the olden times in India. People were significantly in disagreement with him. One of them was Brahmagupta. He said, so Aryabhatta he introduced several things, including the place value system, 0 plus. He introduced trigonometry. He was the first person to introduce science in the way we know it today. Sin theta, cos theta, if you remember that from your class. Then he also said something that was almost blasphemous at that time. He said that it is not the astericism. So by the way, he used a geocentric worldview. So for him, Earth was stationary, everything else is revolving. But he did realize that it was not the stars that were moving, it was the Earth spinning like a top. And he said that in a nice little poem where he says that just like when you are seated on a boat, trees appear to pass by, but in reality you are the one who are moving. It's the same thing for Earth. Now this, people did not like. In fact, Brahmagupta was extremely critical of him. There were others who were critical of him, so critical that none of his students use this model after him. Because they said if the earth is spinning, we should be flying off. By the way, that's a very difficult problem. It's not that simple a problem as you think. Today we are told that, oh, it's gravity which is holding on us to earth even though earth is spinning. But this is a more sophisticated problem. You see, earth is spinning, but the gravitational forces are much bigger. They're so much bigger that they totally overpower the centrifugal force due to the spin. In fact, for you to fly off, it can happen, but the earth would have to spin many times faster. And if that happens, even the gravitational force will not be enough. So these realizations, it take almost 1,000 years for us, right? So at that time, it is not against reason that people were not in agreement with him, and people severely criticized him. But it points to one important thing. See, there are two things here. One is Aryabhata's original work did not survive, but people commented on it. And they commented by giving him credit. They did not say, Brahmagupta did not say, this is my calculus. This is Aryabhata who says this is the way of calculation, I show you this is right or wrong, or something like that. This is very much in the way how we do science today. We call upon the work of others, and then we give them credit, and then sometimes disprove them or prove them right. There was an ecosystem. There was an ecosystem of scholars during the time of Aryabhata. And this is very, very important. He was not alone. There were many others. There was Varahamira who preceded him, Bhaskaracharya, there were multiple Bhaskaracharyas, Brahmagupta, lot of great mathematicians who kept on. Otherwise, you think a work done around some 500 AD would survive till now? Its original is not there. So the only way it is done is through these citations where people who are repeatedly commenting on the work. So this is a very important problem of ecosystem, because there is one more great event in India's history, and I hope you can see what is, if you recognize what is the architectural structure in the middle of this photograph. Now, this is the sundial, the giant sundial at Jantar Mantar. You see, the problem of calendars had not been solved by the time of Jai Singh. The problem of precision kept on coming. Because of the problem of precision, the calendars every 100 years they started to drift away, and they were no longer correct. So if they are no longer correct, somebody had to keep on updating them. Somebody had to keep on making new tables for this. Now, Jai Singh, he was later on given the title of Savai, but by not that too favorite Aurangzeb himself, he realized this task, and he was a brilliant person. Not only was a great warrior, he fought against the Marathas though. So if you want to have a year with him, want to pick with him, you do that. But he was a great scholar. He realized that somebody has to address these problems. And you have to redo all the calendrical calculations. He started with using small instruments, very quickly realized that small instruments also have smaller resolution. Things like metal or wood, they change shape during monsoon time, non-monsoon time, heat, cold, and those lead to significant errors that cannot be useful. So he asked himself, what do I do? One answer for him was, make it large. The larger you go, the better the resolution. Another thing is, don't use metal, don't use wood, use rock. So this is a masonry structure. From what I know, this is the largest masonry sun clock in the world. And in 1700s, he decides to make all these instruments to recalculate the calendars and redo all the calculations. And he creates this amazing set of instruments. Some of them are of old provenance, like something like the sun clock was already known for quite some time. He just made them bigger and made them accurate. How the sun clock works was known to many. But he did create some instruments which seem to be totally his own invention. Because if you look at some of the other ancient archaeological sites where there are astronomical observatories, this is by the way, the era of the naked eye astronomy. Right? So you are doing everything with your naked eye, everything is alignment based, you are trying to align two stars, two known stars, sun, moon, something to each other, and then figure out all the right calculations. So, so Jai Singh so he made all these instruments, and he redid all the calculations, which were fantastic. They started to be used by, and he wrote a book called the Jiz-e-Muhammad Shahi, which Muhammad Shah was the Mughal emperor at the time, so he dedicated the year to him. Most likely if he had not dedicated, he would not have given the permission, the funds, anyway. So that was most likely a political reality for his own times. But he did that, and it tells you that the calendar problem was very, very important. Right? And by the way, there are a set of old archaeological sites where you can find old observatories, naked eye observatories, and this is the most sophisticated of them. There is one in South Korea where there's an astronomical observatory, but that's just a column for observation, just one pillar, sort of, observational pillar. This is far, far more sophisticated. He built 5 of those. The Delhi and the Jaipur one are the biggest. There are 2 smaller ones. One of them is lost. I believe that is one in Mathura. Fantastic work, right? But I call this the scientist's Taj Mahal, not the temple. It is the Taj Mahal. Why Taj Mahal? It's beautiful architecturally. It's abstract. It's weird. You have these abstract forms coming out of the ground. But somewhere it is a monument to the dead, and the death was of naked eye astronomy. You see, this was being built in 1720s. Okay, finished around 1730s or 40s. But by that time, a revolution had happened in Europe. People had given up on naked eye astronomy, and because of one person,